Hi there, in this video we'll be breaking down a fantasy style sound effect from the video game Genshin Impact. Alright, so here we are inside of Reaper, and what I like to do is play you the original sound from the game with the clip, and then I'll go and we'll play you my redesign, the whole thing all the way through, and then we'll go in and dive in deep and go layer by layer to break down everything that I've created. So here is the original game audio. All right, so that's our little clip, and now let's have a listen to the redesign. All right, there you go. Just a little reminder before we get going, make sure you check the chapters in the video if you ever want to skip ahead to any of the layers or parts of the sound that you want to check out. So yeah, so with that said, let's just jump right into our first layer here, and this is going to be our ambience. It's probably the most boring, but at the same time, it's also, it was like the most challenging one to get right, or at least somewhat close to the original. And the reason for that is because the tone of it is just really hard to get exactly right. So you'll see here, like I have this crazy EQ curve, and the reason for that is just I just went back and forth with the original just to try to hear if I can match the same tone as the original. So if I take this off, this is what the original sound sounded like. Right, this is just the sound of me recording some wind at my house, right? So there's nothing special or anything about it. It's just a wind noise recording. And if we listen to the original, it's the same thing. You can still hear that it's kind of this noise wind recording. Maybe there's a bit of tree branches that I didn't have. I could probably added that in. But apart from that, like everything's about the same. So now it's just a matter of like matching the tone of this one and the EQ settings of this one with this one down here. So you can hear mine's a little bit bass heavy. There's also maybe a bit higher frequency. So anyways, I just went back and forth and just try to figure out what I could cut out. So you can see here, I cut out some of the bass here. There's some parts that I wanted to bring up. There's like a little peak I felt like in the original around 600. And then there's a bit of brightness as well, somewhere around like 5,000. So that's basically all I was doing there. So now it sounds like this. Right, so it's not really changing the sound, it's just a matter of matching the tone that you want to get out of it. After that, I added recenter here. This was just to spread out the width of the sound. I really want it to be really wide. And you can see here, I'm not doing very much because it's only at 17%. So maybe adding a little bit more width, more sound at the edges of the stereo field. But that's it. So this is our ambience sound effect here. All right, next let's go to our sound of the character getting the resonant stone here. So it sounds like this. All right, so there's quite a few layers for this one. So let's break it down one at a time. All right, so I think the first layer that I added here is this one down here. And this, I just wanted to have some sort of like click layer as soon as kind of the stone was obtained. And the way I created this is, if I'm not mistaken, I just had NVK create open in another session. And I was basically going through and trying to find some different mechanical sounds in my library and just layering them up together until I can get this like short kind of clicky sound. So there's nothing too special about this specific sound here. Right, it's just like a mechanical sound. And as you can see here, there's no processing on any of these. There's a bit of bus processing here where I added an EQ to cut out some of the highs because it was very sharp, very bright high end. And then the gain here is just to balance the sound with the rest of the layers here. And that's it. So this is the first layer. Okay, once I had this clicky sound, I added this metallic sound here. And if I'm not mistaken, I did the exact same thing here. I opened up another project, NVK Create. And again, same thing. I just wanted to have some more mechanical sounds, more metallic types of sounds. And then I imported them all in here. So altogether, without any processing, this is what it sounded like. So that was pretty cool. I was pretty happy with that. So a few things that I did here. So first, a bit of compression. So this was just to glue the layers together and making sure they're kind of all in a similar dynamic range. After that, a bit of gain. This is just against the balance with the other layers, so it sounds like this now. After that, I added an EQ to cut out some of the highs so it wouldn't be so harsh. And then track spacer to blend with the other layers. So now we had these two layers here, sounds like this. One of the main layers, the main sounds that you hear is this sound right here. And this is actually a sound that I had from my Melee Weapons pack, sound pack that I created. It's a sound library that I have. And I just dragged and dropped it in here. There's no processing or anything. I did cut out some of the tail, but that's it. It's just a sword slash impact that I had. And that makes up a big part of the sound. So if we put it all together, right, it really adds that kind of whooshing impact to the sound. Okay, after that, I did want to have some sort of lower end sound, lower end samples. And here I used these explosion layers. So let's have a listen to this. So they're quite tame, and I did want them to feel kind of distant. So let's have a listen to how I created these. So there's gonna be a lot of processing on these, and because these are actual like explosion sounds. So if I take this off, sounds like this. Right, that's an explosion layer I had. I really cut off a lot of the tail, so you don't really hear it. But let's see what I did. So here, first thing I did is an EQ to cut out a lot of the high end, because I really wanted this to be kind of a mid and low frequency sound. So that's what that's doing here. A bit of transient shaping, and it's actually not even doing anything. Here, recenter, keep everything in the center, and manipulator probably pitching some stuff down. Yep, just a little bit by -4. Next, I think I did a similar thing, if not the exact same thing, with all the other layers. I think I actually copied and pasted everything down. So I think I have the same settings, except for recenter here. This one's a bit wider, sounds like this. So without the processing, with it together. Right, finally, the last layer here sounds like this. This is a little part of an explosion that I had. Here you can see, again, cutting out a lot of the highs and recenter here. So altogether, these are pretty subtle. But if we listen to it in context, if I take it out, again, it's very subtle, but you kind of lose that sense of space when the character obtains the sound, the object, the resonance tone. Right, it just gives it some depth to the sound, to my ears anyways. That's my opinion. All right, the last little layer I had was this one. This was just to kind of fill in the missing space in between these two here. And after that, it was just these sparkle layers. And these sound like this. And these are all these kind of bell sounds, chime sounds. And I designed all of these inside of Faceplant, inside of the synth. And if you want to see a video about it, I'll put it up in the cards above. But basically, I just made these like little bell sounds, played them across my keyboard, and then I sampled them, brought them back into Faceplant in the sampler, and then I was able to like play it higher up on my keyboard, so they're pitched up, and then you can get these really nice sparkly types of sounds. So that's how I created that. If you're interested, like I said, I'll put it in the cards so you can have a look, or maybe even in the description. All right, I hope you're enjoying what you're learning so far. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure you check the description. I have a gift for you. It's my Sound Designer Starter Pack with over 900 sound effects in there that you can use in your personal or commercial project. There's everything from spells, monster sounds, UI sounds, and a whole bunch of other stuff in there. So I'll make sure to leave a link in the description. So that's it for now. Let's get back into our redesign. All right, so once I had that was the like item pickup sound effect. Once I had that item in place, the main part of the sound that I wanted to get after that was the musical and the tonal sounds when the player receives the stone. So let's have a look at how I created that. All right, so let's have a look at this patch here. This is the patch inside of a Faceplant that I created for the tonal sound. There's kind of two layers to this sound. There's this kind of lower layer, and this is what we're going to cover first, and then there's going to be an upper layer. So for this lower layer, all I had here was an analog synth and a triangle waveform. I added unison and in fifths. So what it's doing is it's playing 3/5, 3 notes that are fifths apart, right? So that's how I'm getting this kind of chord. So I just play one note on my keyboard, but I'm getting this chord every time I play it. Here I just increase the release a little bit, and that's about it. After that, it's just mostly effects. So here I have a chorus, ring mod, and pitch shifter. So let's add these one at a time to hear what it's doing. Right, and that's how I created that sound. It's pretty simple, but that's it. All right, the next layer I created was the higher frequency layer. It sounds like this. All right, and again, same thing I did here is inside of Faceplant. So I created this inside of Faceplant. Here you can see, again, same idea, but as before I used a triangle synth wave. I put it on the unison, and I put it on smooth this time, and then ×8. So if I take off our effects here, this is what it sounds like. Right, so I was getting the right concept and the sound, and the only thing that I felt was missing is like this kind of natural tail to the sound. So that's when I added this dual delay here. Right, so that helped to have it in a space, but more what I was going for is to have this kind of nice tails to the sound. So now I have this sound here for the higher frequency, and then this first sound, this first layer for the lower frequencies. And then all together now. Right, and that's how I created that. So for this, I had to go back and forth with the original to hear what notes they were playing and stuff like that. But that's once I had that in place, I could just play notes on my keyboard, and basically I was able to get exactly what I want. The last layer for this player getting the resonant stone here is, again, these sparkly kind of layers that I designed. Again, if you want to see the video, the Bell Magic video, I'll have it up above in the cards. But these are the layers here. So these two right here. So this first one here sounds like this. And the second one. And the only difference here is that this one is on auto pan. And I don't think I changed too much here. I think the only thing I changed was the rate so that it was a bit slower. But basically, it's just moving from right to left the speaker, just so it's not in the center with this one, because if not, this one was kind of masking this one. I wasn't really hearing it, and I wanted to feel like it was moving, right? Because the object is moving. So anyways, so together now you get this kind of sparkle right in front of you in the center field, and then you also have some that are moving around the player as well. Right? So now all together with these three layers sounds like this. All right, so far, let's have a listen to what we have here. I'm just going to mute these last three here that we haven't talked about, and this is what we have so far. All right, pretty good. So let's move on to the next one here. And this is I labeled it as object motion. So this is the resonant stone in motion. So in the original, if we have a listen here, you can hear this. There's this kind of noisy sound for the stone moving towards the player. And then before the player actually obtains it. So let's have a listen. Right. And if you listen carefully, it's kind of like this noisy, distorted-ish kind of sound. So let me play you my version so you can have a listen to what I was hearing here. Right, it was something like that. So let's have a look at how I created that inside of Faceplant here. So inside of Faceplant, I used like I said, I felt like it was noise-based, so that's what I did. I took out a noise oscillator here, a noise generator, and then it was basically a matter of adding some effects to it. So I really wanted to filter it out quite a lot. So that's what I did here. And then I added a bit of movement to the filter with this random LFO. So this random LFO is just adding a really, really little bit of movement here. You can see it's just 2%. And this is just to make it feel like it's jittering a little bit. So if we take off everything here, let's just have a listen to this. Right, so you can kind of hear it like shaking a little bit. So that's what that is doing. Next, I pitch shifted it down. All right. After that, it was a matter of adding a bit of distortion, right? Because I still felt like the sound was a bit distorted. It wasn't just noise. Next, I added a frequency shifter here. This really helped to pitch it up in the right register that I wanted to be at. And the thing that's interesting about this one is I attached it to a note modulator down here so that as I play across my keyboard, I can get different tones. So. Right, so with this, now what I can do is I can try to match the tone of the original one with my keyboard by playing different notes on my keyboard. So that's why I did that over here. Next, I added a filter just to make sure there was no lows coming through. I just really didn't need it, so I just wanted to make sure there was nothing coming through. Here, I added another pitch shifter to pitch everything up, so it sounds like this. Right, and again, another filter, this is to smooth out the top end. Right, so it can sound kind of harsh without this filter here. So this is just smoothing out the top end just so it's a bit more pleasant to listen to. And that's it. That's how I created the sound. After that, it's just a matter of printing it out. And then I added a bit of recenter on here. And this is just to pan it and move it across the stereo field. So if we have a listen to it here, right, you can see that it's moving across the stereo field as it's moving here. Right, and the last thing here that I added was a bit of spectre. This is just to bring up the brightness a little bit of the sound, especially in the higher end. I just felt like it was just missing a little bit of sparkle, a bit of brightness in the top end of the sound. So that's pretty much it. The last part here was just to add some footsteps. So let's have a listen. There's two kind of layers that I added here for footsteps. One was kind of this leather Foley footstep, and one was this like grass footstep. So let's have a listen to this. All right, so for this grass footstep, all I did is I recorded some paper. I had like shredded paper at my house, and as I kind of squished it in my hands and on the ground, I was able to get this kind of sound here. So let's take these off here. Right, so you can really tell now, especially when I put it in stereo, it really sounds like it's paper getting crunched. What really helps to sell it as footsteps, though, is putting it into recenter here so that it's right in the middle of the stereo field, right where the player is on the screen. And then the other thing that is helping here is that I have track spacer to blend it in with this bottom layer here, which is our Foley. Right, so this Foley is being fed into the track spacer, so it kind of ducks the frequencies that these are already occupy so that they're not clashing. Right, so it really blends the two layers together and it sounds good. So for this one, this is just a sample I had in my library. It's just some leather. And it's the exact same leather recording that I copied and pasted multiple times here, 7 times. And all I did is I applied some LKC variator on here, changed the pitch, tape stretch, and rate. Really not very much here. You can see about 8 for each of these, and that's it. That added enough variation to my liking to be able to make it convincing. After that, it was just a matter of adding some effects. So let's have a listen without it, and then I'll slowly add them in. Right, you can hear a very kind of bassy and in your face, not exactly what you want for footsteps. So first thing, just cutting out some of the lows. Next, again, recenter, putting it right where the character is on the screen. Sounds like this now. Right, still sounded kind of bright and sharp to my ear, so I brought down the formant a little bit here. Right, this is much better. And then the gain, I brought it down a little bit just to match with this low end. Right, and those were the footsteps. So with that said, I think those were all of our sounds that we had for this one. So let's have a listen one more time so we can hear all the layers and all the things that we had talked about. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it useful and valuable to see my breakdown. And if you like that, I think you'll like some other videos that I've done about the game Genshin Impact, some other redesigns that I did. So if you want to see those, I'll make sure to put them in the cards above or in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, leave them down below. And I think that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.